Welcome, fellow Lions fans. What a great, long weekend of football. The Lions got a huge victory after beating up on Stafford and his kids. There was also a huge, big NFC North quarterback injury news. That's right. Caleb Williams broke one of his beautifully painted fingernails while grabbing for his purse. Wait a second, hold on. My mistake. Apologies. I was wrong about that. It was not a purse. It was a European carry-all.
Officer! There he goes! Someone took my European carry-all!
Yo, what?
The black leather thing with a strap!
You mean a purse?
Yes, a purse! I carry a purse!
Despite the gruesome injury, he still managed to lead the Bears to a victory over the terrible Tennessee Titans. We also got to see the new kickoff rule, which resulted in everybody just kicking it out of the end zone just like before. The only thing that was more useless than that new kickoff rule was Daniel Jones and the Giants' offense, who only scored 6 points in a loss to the Vikings. You had one job, Daniel Jones, and now I see why they were so desperate to trade up for a quarterback and get rid of you on Hard Knocks. I'm Dr. Jimmy Liao, University of Michigan Medical School grad, board-certified in family medicine. This is the medical edition of the Detroit Lions podcast. On this episode, I'm going to review all the medical issues coming out of the Rams game, go over the initial injury report for the upcoming Bucs game, discuss Jordan Love's injury, and also respond to some interesting choice comments by former Lion Kyle Van Noy. Let's get things started off on a more serious note. I'm recording this on 9/11. Condolences to everybody affected by the tragedy, which is probably all of us in some way. Especially, I want to attribute all the police, firemen, and anybody else that tried to help but ended up losing their life or getting injured. I salute you both then and now. Thank you for your service. I still remember clearly what I was doing that day because I was working at the family birth center all day delivering babies. It was a surreal juxtaposition with families having a joyous, wonderful day welcoming a new baby to their lives, while the TVs inside their delivery rooms were showing this insane event unfolding in real time. So a crazy day all around that day. I'm never going to forget that. Now, I wanted to address some of Kyle Van Noy's comments he made earlier today on a podcast that he did. He said he was disappointed that he had to wait an entire quarter of football for an ophthalmologist to drive in to come see him. Are you kidding me here? What's the level of entitlement here with Van Noy? How often do you need an ophthalmologist on site at a football game? Not much reason for it. Maybe you get a foreign body in an eye. I've done many foreign body extractions out of an eye in urgent care. Fairly simple procedure. I might send him to an ophthalmologist if there was a metal foreign body which can cause a rust ring. But really, there's not much cause for an ophthalmologist to be at a football game. And in this case with Van Noy, it ended up being fairly useless anyway. He had an orbital fracture that requires an ER visit and a CT scan to figure out what's going on. An ophthalmologist can't even do the full evaluation without a slit lamp, CT scan, and other tools, which I'm sure are not available at every stadium or probably any stadium. So does Kyle Van Noy really expect a full range of specialists at every game? Ophthalmology, dermatology, urology, gastroenterology in case he has diarrhea, cardiology, nephrologist, endocrinologist, psychiatrist in case he's feeling depressed, gynecologist in case his wife's having an issue in the stands. Pretty sure that the NFL does not pay for an entire hospital staff and a whole suite of specialists to be at every stadium in case any kind of injury happens. So welcome to the real world, Van Noy, where we have to wait 2 weeks to get an MRI, not 2 hours. Get the fuck out of here with this entitlement. All right, let's talk about what happened to the Packers as they went down to Brazil and almost got their quarterback waxed. Jordan Love went down with a left knee injury. There was a disturbing knee pop on video, which I broke down the possibilities on my Lions Wire article, so go check that out. The official public diagnosis is an MCL, about 3 to 4 week recovery. MCL sprain is not a bad scenario here for Jordan Love. It could have been much worse. So can a partial MCL sprain explain the knee pop? It was reported as a grade 1 or grade 2 MCL sprain. Either of those grades can cause some laxity of the knee, which means it bends sideways a little bit more than normal. A grade 3 MCL would be a complete tear. It's possible a partial tear could have caused that knee pop, but I think there's a possibility something else happened as well. A tendon rupture or a ligament rupture both can cause a knee pop issue. Tendons connect bones to muscles, so when there's a rupture there, that muscle instantly retracts like we saw with Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers in the past year. A ligament rupture like the MCL with Jordan Love or an ACL tear will cause the bones that the ligament connects both of those two to move and shift, which can cause a sudden pop. A patella dislocation could also cause a sudden pop. That's something that can pop out and usually spontaneously reduces, which means it pops back into place without any intervention, so you wouldn't necessarily see the medical staff put that back into place. Now, with the patella dislocation, almost always there's a tear of the medial patellofemoral ligament, which supports and stabilizes the patella. That's something that should be visible on the MRI if it's torn. So Packers and Love right now likely know if there was a patellar dislocation or not. Now you may ask, Jordan Love should have known right away if there was a patella dislocation. Yeah, that's possible. He knew instantly. But in the game, he's getting sandwiched. He's trying to make a pass. End of the fourth quarter, his MCL just got torn. So it's possible it was like a car crash where crazy stuff happened. He didn't really know what happened to his knee. But the MRI should elucidate things, though. So what's the outlook for him? The MCL, mild to moderate, is not a big deal. Could have been a lot worse. He could play as early as next week in week 3. More likely, it'll be week 4 through 5. We play him in week 9, so he should be pretty much fully recovered at that point. Now, if he also had a patella dislocation, that's typically about a 3-week recovery for a quarterback. Mahomes in 2019 had this. Stafford in 2009 had this, and they were both back in about 3 to 4 weeks without surgery, without any other treatment. The other possibility that happened with Jordan Love was that he had a left high ankle sprain, but apparently they're not concerned about that at all. If he had one, which he likely had a very mild one, it's not something concerning. He probably would not have missed any time with that injury. Speaking of what happened in Brazil, a lot of us watched that game and saw players slipping around all over the place because apparently it's a soccer field, so maybe it wasn't totally designed for football. This was a grass field, possibly some synthetic fibers is also, sort of like the Packers Stadium, but mostly a grass field. So this is important to keep in mind in this turf versus grass debate. Grass is probably generally safer than turf because it slows down players and there's a little bit more cushioning. But really only if it's maintained properly. If it's not done properly, you can have a disaster of a field like we saw in the Brazil game where players are slipping around all over the place and potentially causing its own set of slipping type injuries. So if all stadiums in the NFL were required to have grass like a lot of people are suggesting or wanting to happen, you might end up with a lot of terrible fields in these cold weather locations and domes like at Ford Field. It's just hard to maintain grass in those kind of environments. So the field conditions could end up being just bad. All right, the injury report for Wednesday just dropped. So let's review all the players on that as well as all the players that are not on it, despite seeing something happen during the last game against the Rams. Start with Penei Sewell, no practice due to an ankle. Obscured video showed that Sewell had possibly a right high ankle injury. These kind of things can be tricky. High ankles can cause instability in that ankle joint. Low ankle sprains don't cause that kind of instability. So it's trickier and can take a little bit more time to recover from. Remember last year, Taylor Decker and Jonas Jackson both finished games, but then missed 2 and 3 games respectively due to the high ankle. With a no practice, that definitely raises some concern. We'll see how he does the rest of the week. Hopefully he gets up to an LP by the end of the week, which would be a good sign for his availability. I'm still expecting him to play, but that's up in the air at this point. Jameson Williams LP due to his ankle on video, just a mild tweak to the left high ankle. The LP is actually a very good sign. I expected him to get some precautionary rest during the week. Again, high ankles, you want to rest them. You want to make sure that they're okay. So LP already on Wednesday is actually a very positive sign heading into the weekend. This means I'm not expecting any limitations on Sunday. DJ Reader, full practice. That means he's ready to go. This is almost exactly 9 months from his quad tendon tear. He's only been practicing, though, for about 3 weeks. So gotta still ease him into the season to avoid any kind of further injury. Don't expect a major impact this weekend. Expect somewhat of a limited snap count. Kerby Joseph surprisingly had an NP, no practice, due to a hamstring. He played until the final defensive play. Hopefully this means it's nothing serious, but we'll see how that goes. Marcus Davenport, also a surprise. No practice due to a groin. This guy had a major injury question marks heading into the season after only playing 4 games last year. But the fact that he's already in week 2 with a no practice due to an injury, not a good start. He did play until the second to last play against the Rams. There were no signs of injury on that play, so severity is uncertain at this point. Hopefully it's just a precautionary issue. Carlton Davis had a full practice listed with a chest. The video showed he landed on his elbow, likely got the wind knocked out of him. There was a chance he had some kind of injury to his rib cartilage or his abdomen. The fact that he was listed at all means it was more than a wind injury, but also nothing serious, nothing to be worried about since he had a full practice. Ifeatu Melifonwu down to a no practice this week with his ankle. Not good. Not sure what's going on with him. He was last seen in the second preseason game. He played the entire first half. It looked like he might have tweaked it in the first quarter on a kickoff coverage, but nothing really showed up on video. So not sure what's going on with him, but certainly not a good sign for this weekend. Loren Strickland, full practice with his thumb. He's an undrafted rookie. He might make his first action this weekend because Melifonwu sounds like he's going to be out, and Kerby Joseph surprisingly went on with a hamstring. So we'll see what happens with those two. Now, there are some notables that were unlisted, positively unlisted. Terry Young Arnold was down briefly, possibly rubbing his left upper hip or thigh area. Inconclusive on that. Kept playing the rest of the game, though, so great sign he's not listed. Brian Branch was suspicious for a mild concussion this past Sunday. There were no external signs of concussion on a video, though. External signs are necessary for a doctor to diagnose a concussion. Just because there was no diagnosis and he's not on the report doesn't rule out an undiagnosed concussion. Without external signs, the doctor cannot diagnose a concussion unless the patient self-reports symptoms like confusion, nausea, fogginess, headache, those kind of things. But since he did not self-report by today, he should be available for Sunday, no problems. Alex Anzalone, he was sandwiched awkwardly while making a tackle. His knee did land a little bit hard, which can sometimes cause a PCL sprain, but the video is pretty benign overall and good to see that he's not on the report. Now, Dan Campbell's Wednesday press conference did not discuss any injuries. James Houston's inactivation in week 1 was discussed by Campbell, and he did not bring up the preseason bone bruise or any injury causing his inactivation. So it sounds like that was a purely healthy scratch. Now let's move on to the Tampa Bay Bucs injury report. This is pretty significant. Calijah Kancey, no practice with his calf. He already missed week 1 with this calf. Look back to last year. He had a calf strain in training camp that took 4 weeks to recover from. And then in his first game back on week 1, he aggravated the calf and missed the next 3 games. Significant personal history of calf strain issues that cause problems. Because of this, I expect the Bucs to be very safe and cautious with him and not have him play this weekend. In the secondary, Antoine Winfield Jr., no practice with an ankle. He's already been ruled out for at least a week or two due to this ankle. Zion McCollum, cornerback, had a limited practice due to a concussion. The limited practice means he's already on track to pass through the concussion protocol, which means he'll probably play on Sunday. Josh Hayes had a no practice due to an ankle. He's another secondary player. He left the last game with an ankle injury and then was seen later in a boot. Now, the boot doesn't necessarily mean it's anything serious, but certainly is not a good sign. So his availability this weekend is definitely in question. Also on the Bucs injury report, KJ Britt limited practice due to an illness. He's a linebacker. William Golston limited practice due to an elbow. He's a defensive tackle. Luke Gedeke limited practice, concussion, offensive tackle. Logan Hall limited practice due to a foot. He's a defensive end. Now, notably unlisted was Bryce Hall, a cornerback who also got hurt this past weekend and was placed on IR. He had a fractured fibula. 2, possibly 3 secondary players for the Bucs are going to be out this weekend, along with Calijah Kancey. So significant pass defense issues for the Bucs. So this means hopefully Jared Goff and the wide receivers have a big day. If the secondary is helped out by the Bucs dropping more guys into coverage, then Gibbs and Montgomery could have big days in the running game. A quick update here on Kerby Joseph. On X, at Abdulio Garcia 19 sent me a post saying that there was a hint that Kerby sustained his hamstring injury in practice. If that's the case, that's way more concerning because we don't know the severity at this point. It could be something severe. We have no idea. So we'll keep an eye on the injury reports later this week. Also, I wanted to touch on Jahmyr Gibbs, who was coming back from his hamstring last game. Also not on the report, no aggravation, which is a good sign. As I expected, he had no limitations on his carries or his snaps. He played 51% of snaps at the running back position, which is actually more than David Montgomery, who had 49% of snaps. So good news for Jahmyr Gibbs there going forward. There was a YouTube question at Mathix2678 asking, Dan had instructed Jahmyr Gibbs to touch his top speed occasionally in practice to help avoid the possibility of hamstring injuries during the season. Is that a good practice? Hard to know for sure how to really prevent hamstring strains. Touching top speed, practicing the way you play certainly seems like it would be a good idea. However, the 2 times he hurt his hamstring in the past year were both during practice and not during a game. Hard to say about this, but certainly I think he should be hitting top speed in practice just as a general conditioning and strengthening standpoint. That's it for today. Surprisingly, we're favored by 7 points over the Bucs. That's pretty high considering the Bucs looked pretty good last weekend. So hopefully that plays out accurately. Enjoy the game and talk to you next time.